All right, everybody. Happy Wednesday and welcome to the 77th edition of our mock interview and feedback. Going on since the beginning of the pandemic. And there you go, my audio on my phone. All right, this is our mock interview. We're here today with David Lee, who's a data analyst. And we're also here again with Cory Hiramoto, founder of careershakers.com, a career consultancy. He's been with us for every one of these 77 mock interviews, and he's here back again. And so the opportunity is simple. David has offered a job description, and he's also going to throw up his resume. And Cory will ask questions and provide feedback. Along the way, for those of you attendees, you can ask questions as well, used either in an interview or look for tips and tricks as you navigate your own interviews. Finally, we are also looking for volunteers on the next mock interviews that we do, and we have openings next week. It's a great opportunity, especially in this time where job hunting has become increasingly difficult. So I encourage you to sign up, send me a message me privately here or on our Facebook group on Albert's List or on LinkedIn, and we'll get you set up and we'll get you the help that you need so you can stand out among your competition. Without further ado, Cory, over to you.
Thank you, Albert. I appreciate it. Back again. And this is actually David's second round of Albert's List mock interviews. And so we're super excited to have him back here again to be practicing for a Vet Cove, I believe is what it's called, Vet Cove data analyst position. Unfortunately, the role is closed now, but I think the job description is pretty descriptive and gives a good idea of kind of what they're looking for, and it covers all the key aspects of it. So we're going to be practicing a mock interview for that. Typically, how it works is I'll ask an interview question, and then David will give his answer. I won't give any hints or tips or anything like that unless he gets totally stuck. We wanted to make it feel as realistic as possible. And then at the end of each question, we'll dive into some feedback, the good, the bad, and then potentially things that I'm thinking through, or also whatever you as the audience may be thinking. And please do use the chat function if you want to interact with me or with David, and submit questions for either of us if you want. And it doesn't even have to be related to the data analyst role. And for those of you who are wanting additional interviewing tips and tricks, make sure you check out the Albert's List YouTube channel. We'll put the link in the chat function as well. He's got recordings of all of their events as well as previous mock interviews. If you're applying for a different type of job that you don't see covered today, check out the Albert's List. And then, of course, I have my own YouTube channel, Career Shakers, all one word. And I will actually be uploading a data science job description analysis video probably in the next week, where I'm going to walk through all the resume keywords that you need, as well as the potential interview questions that you'll be covering today. Now, before I get into that, though, I want to give David his platform and say, first of all, thank you so much for coming back and volunteering. This is not easy to put yourself out there in front of a large audience for education purposes. And so I also want to give David a quick platform to kind of talk about his background, introduce himself to the audience, as well as plug in terms of what types of roles he's looking for, where he's open to getting jobs, whether that's moving or fully remote or hybrid. And then if anyone in the audience or whoever's watching this recording later is impressed by his background and his answers today, and you want to reach out to him for potential roles, we'll have his contact info as well. But David, why don't you give a quick introduction on yourself and tell the community how they can help you?
Hey guys, my name is David Lee. I have a BA in economics from UCSD, and I am not like the stereotypical analyst, as in I transitioned careers like many other folks have over the course of the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic started. I'm sort of like half and half on like business and on like technical, a bit heavier on the business side, just because I've been doing the business side a bit more in my career. And I'm just looking for ways to basically help companies grow. And in terms of roles, I'm looking at locally in the Bay Area and remotely. I'm also open to relocation, but for relocation, I would have to pass the probationary period first before I go.
Cool. And David, if you want to, you can actually share your resume on the screen during our interview today, if you want, so people can take a look at your background.
How do I do that? Do I just like screen share or?
Yeah, you can screen share if you have a copy of it up.
Okay.
And while he's doing that, again, quick plug, we are looking for volunteers. This is totally free, where I will customize job questions for you, job interview questions based on whatever job description and your background that you send to me. And all we ask is that you are brave and put yourself out here in front of the Albert's List community to learn about your role and your background. And so if you are interested in volunteering, please reach out to either me or Albert, and we are open to taking volunteers. We typically do that somewhere around like 5 or 6 o'clock Pacific time during one of the weekdays. Excellent. All right. David, are you ready to get started?
I better be.
Okay, well, we're going to find out. Let's start with the first question. Can you tell me about a time where your work or your analysis identified a key customer behavior or insight?
Tell you about a time where my work uncovered a key customer behavior or insight. As in just like a specific group of customers, or or we're talking about like from a specific area.
You can pick.
Okay. I'll go with the time when I did a compilation of all of our sales across the different territories in America at Bell and Lark, just to measure everything and then just look at how everything was going. One thing I noticed was that there were a couple of states, especially closer to the West Coast, like between like Central Time and like West Coast time, that had a lot more like sales for our most popular products, as opposed to like somewhere like in the very like high up north, or like in like the Appalachian area where we didn't have as many sales. So compiling the data and then making dashboards out of those using both Excel and Tableau, I was able to pinpoint the 5 states where our products were selling the best. Given that, I said, okay, our marketing isn't working as well in the other states. They're working very well in these 5 states for some reason. Can we try to like see if we can like target these 5 states a bit more and ease off on the marketing for some of the other states where we're having much fewer sales? Given that we had people on the ground in these 5 states, like physically located in these 5 states, we decided to ask each of them to see if they can find a local trade fair to advertise our products in, and to engage not just like online, but on the ground physically with potential consumers. We did that, and this strategy worked and increased our sales by 200%. So given this outcome, we pulled back on advertising with a lot of the Appalachian states and focused on the states in the West and in the Central Time Zone that enabled us to increase our sales by that much.
Very good. And then when you were doing your analysis, did you run into any roadblocks with the data?
So with the data, with this particular analysis, no. But in other times, I've run into roadblocks such as like missing data. Like a lot of times when you're asking a customer for information, they don't like put in all the information. So like when you're asking for feedback, like, okay, what do you like about this? What do you like about this product? What could improve about this product? They don't always fill out everything that you want. And then that basically, a lot of times you have to sort of figure things out by just like running more of these like surveys. In addition, like if they don't like give out their email, or they don't give out like their location and what kind of product they're specifically interested in, you would have to like infer by their buying patterns to see what they're actually after, and so you can make a more tailored experience for them.
Okay, good. So in terms of the feedback, I actually like David's example a lot. He was able to walk through what he was able to find, how it led to an actual business impact, the decision, and then of course the results. Very good star answer. Answered my question in terms of deriving some type of insight. The only piece, obviously I'm not qualified enough to assess it, but the only piece that I would say you may want to expand is more on how you actually did the analysis. I know you mentioned Excel and Tableau, but maybe walk through, okay, how big was the data set? What are some of the statistical methods that you had used in order to, pull out some of these insights, just so I can get a good sense of your technical capabilities. But other than that, I thought the answer was very well-rounded and really good. The only thing also is, I'm not too sure if you're reading off of something. And the reason why I say that is because you'll give about a sentence and then you'll pause and then you'll give another sentence. So I'm not sure if you're reading off of something or if that's just like how you normally answer interview questions, but that's just something that you may want to keep in mind in terms of like how that's interpreted, right? But the answer itself was great.
I need to practice that more in that case, because I'm getting sometimes like I'm trying to like figure out a way to like how to like best phrase it. That's why I'm pausing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I think with practice, right, you'll already have known how to phrase your stories, and then it'll just flow a whole lot more naturally. But all of the content and how you said it is great. All right. Let's see. Anyone? Okay. No questions in the chat yet. Okay. Cool. Next question. Okay. Can you tell me about a time where you had a proposal or an idea that was initially declined by the business and how you managed to handle that situation?
Proposal or idea that was already declined by the business and how I handled the situation. So give me one moment to think. This is fairly hard for me actually, because didn't have too many of these instances before.
Which is probably good.
Oh yeah, this one. So when I was working at Accenture, and we were looking at how long it was taking our local warehouses to process our shipments. Some of our shipments weren't so urgent, others were very urgent, and even a one-day delay would cost us money. So when I was looking at how quickly they were processing the shipments, I did find out that for some reason, our receiving, especially, so our receiving in Q4 of 2022, for some of the shipments, it wasn't necessarily hitting our estimated time to process KPIs. So I reached out to the warehouse manager and I asked him to please look at it, because for some reason it was just this time it was not hitting our KPIs. I compared the data to that from the previous year, same time, and there was a noticeable difference from the previous year and the year before. So when I reached out to the manager didn't seem too happy about that. He almost took it like almost personally that I was asking him to look into it. So I stepped back and I said, well, I was like, okay, so how can I solve this problem? I'm not sure if they introduced like any like new like SOPs that people are having to adapt to, or maybe they just hire new people, or it was just like something that I didn't account for or couldn't know of beforehand. So I decided to schedule a video call instead of just an email with the warehouse manager. I explained the situation to him. After I explained what my thoughts were, then he opened up and he said it was a combination of implementing a new software that sometimes just didn't work. And also they onboarded about 3 new team members who were exclusively responsible for the receiving side. And so for the new team members, we decided to make sure that they were fully trained up to level. For the new software, we try to see like if we could, like, when the software didn't work, if there was a different way that we could use to help speed up the processing so that we would be able to hit our KPIs in the end. And doing so, with all the analysis that I ran together with the warehouse manager, we were able to end up saving about 1 hour in the processing for the average shipment.
And then what did you do to fix the software?
So the software end, it was we had some of our tech people look at it, see if they could improve it on the back end. It was basically created by some of our software engineers. And then as soon as we fixed some bugs in it, ended up working better. Like it wasn't 100% foolproof, but it did end up like having like fewer glitches. And then for the new team members, we were able to get them up to speed. So in the end, wasn't the perfect solution, but we were able to get them much closer to our KPIs.
And then what did you have to do to get them up to speed faster?
It was training, just additional training, making sure, because they were new to the whole entire system. So just making sure that they were basically, we just threw them originally. These 3 new members have been thrown in and just given like a very big crash course and just told just to start doing it. Like it wasn't necessarily like they weren't as familiar with the process as they should be in the first month. So that was understandable. But we just made sure that they were all up to speed. And that solved that issue.
Okay. All right. So for this question, this one is more of a soft skills question as opposed to it's more about influencing and communication than it is, and stakeholder management, than it is about the actual analysis portion, which is why I'm not super concerned that you didn't give me a whole lot of detail as to how you actually arrived at this conclusion. Also, again, I'm not an analyst, so there's no way that I could tell if it was correct or not. But because the focus of this question is around the influencing and the stakeholder management, I wanted to see either a stronger example or it worded and focused more in a different way to show your influencing skills, as opposed to how it kind of naturally played itself out, right? Like, I don't think your secret sauce or what makes you good at your job is the fact that you decided to have a meeting instead of just sending an email so you could get context, right? I think what you did very well in this story is more about understanding that the data always isn't perfect and there's always context, business context that you need to get, that you need to understand to figure out why certain changes may be occurring, and then also being able to, I think, disseminate information and data from a data perspective to someone on the business, where they can take it, as you said, not personally, but more so just noticing that there's a trend and then there's a change. And then, of course, showing that you are their actual business partner, not just someone who like tries to call them out and get them in trouble, because then you actually find multiple solutions to help it work, right? Which is additional training, or training in the right way, or modifying and fixing some type of software.
Mm-hmm.
And also for both of those, I think you should have more specific examples as to what you did, as opposed to like just generally saying you fixed the software because there were bugs, or you gave training, right? Because like I would have assumed that this person already had training before they started there. And so it's not necessarily about, oh, these 3 people are new, so they need more training. And then we gave more training and then they were fine now. There's probably a systematic thing that needs to be fixed, probably, as opposed to just training these 3 people, right? Maybe this has led you to realize that the onboarding process for your vendor actually is not robust enough, or they actually don't even have an onboarding process, or you've realized that they have a very high turnover rate, and that's why there are 3 new receiving employees. So you now need to actually fix the turnover as opposed to just training new employees, right? Or maybe you've uncovered that they do get training, but the process that currently is in place is so complex that even with training, they can't learn it fast enough, or whatever, right? And you also need to know, okay, what were the specific bugs or things that they fixed in the software so that you can be more specific with how you were actually able to help, right? But I think the
Yeah.
crux of the story is good. Just the details and how you are able to focus and highlight your strengths needs to be in different places.
Yeah. I should like explain the training part more, because what actually happened was the training they received was on par with our standard protocol. But given that they were onboarded straight like direct like right before the rush season, they were not accustomed to, like, usually like when we onboard people, it's usually like maybe like in spring or like summer. And then it's like when it's like not as fast, as urgent as during the holiday season. So with that, when you have three new folks who were just barely on the job for a week, and all of a sudden you just put them into a rush, they were not prepared to take all that. Because if you had already like 2 months experience, you already understand the process a lot better versus you just 1 week on the job.
Right. But also, if it's rush season, you can't take them away for additional training because they need to be working, right? So you also need some other type of solution to help
Yeah,
you finish the rush, right?
yeah,
So there's probably another thing that also happened that you didn't mention in there, right? Because if you're saying, oh, it's not their fault, they joined at like the wrong time when it's super busy, so we gave them more training. Well, to train them, you have to take them away from doing work to train them, which means if they're not working because they're doing training, then someone has to do the work. So you still needed to do something
mhm,
besides, I should say, in addition to giving them more training, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And then that was all as a result of your insight and analysis, because they would not have caught this if it wasn't for you, right? So then it's more of the big picture, like business impact that you had.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then Albert asked, is there a way to easily tell if someone is reading notes? And will the hiring managers get offended? Yes. How you can tell? Generally, where you look is one big thing. Because if you're looking down and then you look up, or if you're looking to the side, or if you have glasses, like you can see when your screen changes color because it'll like flash. So I generally recommend you don't wear glasses during your interviews. But yeah, all those things kind of give it away. And also, I was in an interview once where someone literally was typing when I asked them a question, which means they were literally looking up the answer while I asked them the question, because there's no other reason why you should be typing. So there's a lot of things, especially now that we've been in this whole Zoom video environment for like 3 years now. Everyone can tell when you're reading, and also it's like your delivery too, right? Which is what I was saying with David, where it's like you could be reading something, and then that's why you have to read it, and that's why you're talking a little bit slower than normal, is because you have to be able to read it and then say it and then read it and then say it. So it's also how you say it as well. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next question here. David, how would you rate your SQL skills on a scale of 1 to 10? And then I have a second part of the question.
I would rate my SQL skills between a 5 and a 7.
Okay, can you pick a number?
Let's just go for average 6.
Okay. Why do you think you're a 6 and not a 10?
There's a lot of higher end SQL stuff that I'm not too familiar with yet. Like, I've used some of them, but I'm not too like familiar with them. As if you ask me them on a coding interview, it would probably take me a long time just to write that one. Whereas, well, a lot of the more intermediate and beginner functions, I'm very familiar with. I mean, just for an example, like if you were asking me to like replace everything, like if it was like if you're looking at shipping costs and you want to say like 100 is high, like 50 is medium, and 1 is low. Of course, no one has $1 for shipping costs unless you're sending like first class, like a letter. But if you want me to replace like 50 with medium, 100 with high, and 1 as low, you would use a case when. Like, and be case when 100, then high, 50, then medium, and 1, then low. I'm also familiar with, and I've done a lot of CTEs. Basically, and then also a lot of very, very complex joins, so like 10 to 20 tables at once. Would you like me to elaborate on any more of that?
Yeah, what are some of the advanced SQL functions that you believe you're not very comfortable with?
Windows functions are probably the best example, and also string aggregation.
Okay. And what are you doing to get more familiar with these?
I've been taking classes on them on both Udemy and LinkedIn Learning. And I've been trying to practice them as much as I can. Just it's kind of hard to do so without like an actual data set. So I've been using the Northwind function. I've been using the Northwind data set online for that.
Okay. All right. So this is an actual interview question that I used to ask when I was hiring for data analysts at my company. Just because most people tend to be pretty honest here. No one ever says that they're a 10. And we also don't expect anybody to ever be a 10 because that would mean you've mastered everything and there's nothing for you to learn. So most people either fall between like 8 and 9 is what most people say. David was very honest and picked 6. But what he did very well here, though, is he gave actual examples of some of the, I would say, like, yeah, medium complex functions that David's familiar with and he's actually used in a business setting and how he's used them, which is great. Because sometimes they may not actually need somebody who knows window functions, right? And complex joints. So it was smart for David to actually use examples. And I'm sure as you know, you've been working in this field obviously longer than I have, you don't actually need to know all the super complex functions in order to be successful at your job. And so it's very good to give that context and walk through those examples. And for those of you who will be having these interviews, it is also good to know what are the most advanced functions. And it's okay to be honest that you aren't super familiar with them, but also be able to talk about when you would use them over or when it would be advantageous to use the more advanced functions versus something else. At least give them a sense of you understand the concept, you just haven't been able to use it yet in a business setting. But overall, I think David's answer was great. I think you should probably rate yourself a little bit higher if you're in an actual interview, though, David. Probably like 7.5 or something would probably be good. Jayesh said, I would like to know more about situations or logic where CTE was applied as a solution in his business case. You want to give some context there, David? Because I have no idea what any of those words mean.
I think what they mean is they want to know like when I actually use CTEs, basically like to pull data. So if I were to ask you, okay, can you give me can you pull the last date for me that each one of our customers within our customers database has ordered? You would use you'd use CT like you to create like a table, and then you would group by a lot of different things, and then and also depending on the information you want to output, order by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yada yada, depending on how many features you need to see. Cory, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. Can you tell me about a time where you improved a process?
Absolutely. So this actually has to do a lot with my experience before becoming a data analyst.
Then I'm going to
Before
stop you. I'm going to stop you, and then I want you to use an example of a time when you were a data analyst.
Okay. So the first example of me improving a process when I was well, does this count if I used like when I was concurrently doing data analytics, but not having the official title of analyst?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So when I first started as a marketing operations intern at Lark, where I eventually got promoted to that of an analyst, I started basically by helping them create campaigns and just like letting my manager know when to basically blast them. When I was in the process of doing this in the first month, I noticed how similar some of the campaigns were in structure. So with this in mind, I asked my manager if I could help create some like templates so that we didn't have to create them from scratch, and to make them like more tailored in some ways to help blast each one by a different subject. So I work with my manager to create the different templates, to group them into categories, and to group them into like when we want to do it. And in creating the templates, I was able to save our marketing team an hour per week in creating the final versions.
Can you give me another example where you improved a process that you identified needed to be fixed through your analysis?
Sure. So the root of this was when I was working on doing the hypotheses on testing basically the so let me go back. So when my manager asked me to work with the other manager who was in charge of this project to see how much shipping we're observing as part of our revenue, we didn't have all the data in one place, and it took us a while to actually pull everything because we had no centralized system. Now, after aggregating all the data and running all the testing, we got to a conclusion for that. But that was not the end. Because we didn't have all our data in one place and we couldn't really pull it, that cost us about 2 days of processing time, which should have just been very, very quick to pull everything. So to implement that, I helped them create a SQL server, and I'm a SQL server with different tables for orders, customers, vendors, and such. And I helped them manage it so that the next time we needed to pull something, we could easily just write SQL query and pull information rather than having to go on a scavenger hunt and find it somehow.
I'm trying to think of a follow-up question because I don't have enough details. I guess, how did you create the SQL server?
It was a very pretty long process. I had to do a lot of research on my end. And I'm not actually sure that I understand every part of it, to be honest. But after basically coding it in and then doing the data validation, that was the basic process of doing it. It's not something that I would like consider like, it's not something that I consider myself an expert in. Like I'm a lot more on the analytics part than on like the architecture part.
Okay. I'm trying to understand if that's like in scope for a data analyst role, and I'd have no idea if that is.
It's typically not. It's typically someone a lot more senior in level would do. But
Okay.
I was playing jack of all trades at Lark, so.
Okay. Well then, I guess it's out of scope, so then would not be a deal breaker. But it's also an area where if you could talk more about how you did it, would also help you stand out, right? Like if you're saying someone more senior typically would do this, and you're able to explain how you did it, then that would make you look more senior, right? In a job interview perspective. Um, I don't know if that's possible if you actually understand what was happening, but that would probably be an area to help you stand out. Now, in terms of the general question itself, which the original question was, tell me about a time you improved a process. So it is best to use something related to your analyst work, because now you actually have that experience. And even the marketing one you chose was not necessarily a process that you improved, right? You created templates
Mm-hmm.
to make it more efficient, but you didn't actually fix a process itself, right? And also, because this is an analyst role, I want you to point out a time where you did some type of analysis, got some type of insight, and then realized something was broken and needed to fix it, right? And so those are just more powerful examples. Hopefully there's one you got from like your uh, uh, time at Accenture.
I mean, there is one where I helped the material cost analysis team save a lot of time in basically in their analyses. But that was more like automation related, so I wasn't sure like how relevant it is to like data analytics per se.
I mean, if you're doing data automation, then that's related.
Yeah, I guess. Basically, so after I created the material cost analysis model for them, I I used backend in Google Scripts to automate it for them. Basically, originally we were having to like calculate a lot of stuff just using like formulas and all that stuff. Writing the script in the backend to automate all the formulas and then to repopulate every sheet as needed based on like newer conditions. It saved that team about 8 hours total.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay, let's go with. Okay, so let's just assume that you were actually interviewing for VetCove, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe you would basically be a data analyst for their sales function.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine we hired you here at VetCove as our data analyst for the sales function. Um, Based on what you know about our business and our products and what our company does, if we hired you here, what hypothesis or hypotheses would you want to test about our customer data or our sales data?
That's a good question because I actually don't know much about how to take care of pets in general. I had one pet, but I'm not that super familiar with the industry. But based on what I can say, I would I would test a first look at like based on what kind of pet you have. I would look at like, okay, do the owners with the same kind of pets go for the same supplies for purchase? That's one thing. And what kind of pets have similar supplies? And then if we can figure that out, I would also get feedback from our customers and see, okay, what are some of the different products that you would so what are some things you like about our product? What can we improve upon? We can help correct that on our end. And what kind of products are you interested in that we haven't offered yet, that we can maybe source from a vendor? And once we have all that information, I would work to see, okay, how high, so what's the best way to get like our customers to like buy like in higher quantities? And hmm, is there a way for, let's see, are there additional ways to like optimize our products going forward? Those would be my initial questions. I'm sure that there are some that I probably have not considered yet.
Okay, taking the first one, what data sets would you need from us? And then what type of analysis would you do?
So from the beginning, I would create a lot of chart analyses to like group to group the customers by like the kind of pets they have if we know and the products they have. And then I would also look at like any survey feedback. Is there a way you would recommend approaching this?
I am not a data analyst, so I clearly cannot answer this question. But I guess I would probably go with one of these comments say. Goal would be to find basic supplies or starter package that new pet owners are required based on other owners' previous purchases. So I guess basically what we're kind of missing here is the application towards the business perspective, which I think you were getting to. You just weren't able to articulate at the end, right? So your first initial hypothesis was to see if there are any trends around certain customer buying behaviors or patterns related to either products, segments, or customers, right? And then from that, what we didn't get to was what you would do with that information. So let's just say hypothetically that certain veterinary offices of certain sizes tend to order certain volumes of products. And then your goal would be to try to, I don't know, maximize the amount of purchasing that they could do outside of, I don't know, whenever, I don't know if you know if vet offices have like a holiday period, but like maybe first your hypothesis to see if there is any type of timing or trend during the year that affects or creates sales cycles
Yeah.
for Vetco. And then from there, if the answer is no, then trying to understand, okay, why may there be changes in sales projections between different periods if there's no consistent cycle, right? Because there's no like Christmas period for vets, right? So
Yeah.
then if the answer is no, then the next hypothesis you would test is are there certain buying behaviors or customer characteristics that lead to bigger purchases versus smaller purchases? And then if you're able to figure out what is the cause of this, then your recommendation then is to try to find optimal marketing campaigns or bundles or promotions that would promote higher volume sales from your bigger customers, right? That would be like your whole A/B test that you would run through with me. And then, of course, you would layer on the actual statistical, whatever, modeling analysis of how you would actually do that, which I'm not qualified to talk about. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the business application is important, right? It's like, I want to test this because of this. If we find this, then this. If we don't find this, then do this, right? And then all this leads to some type of bundling recommendation, marketing promotion, or maybe customer segmentation, which then leads to, new sales territories or whatever, right? Like some type of applicable business sense for the sales department. That's kind of how I would go through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely mine all the data from previous periods to see if there's a trend. But I felt like that was too just like general.
I mean, that in itself is very general, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, you're mining it for trends related to what, right? Like trends related to
To seasonal or
cyclical,
holidays
like
or whatever.
seasonal volume purchases, right? That's your first hypothesis. Are
Mm-hmm.
there seasonal volume purchases for Vetco? you would naturally think no, because you're selling to veterinary hospitals, not consumers who have like a Black Friday or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
then walk me through your decision tree, right? If the answer is yes, then that means I could do X, Y, and Z analysis, which leads to what? If the answer is no, there is no cyclical purchasing pattern, then what, right? Well, then explain to me why your sales in December seem to be significantly higher than sales in October, right? That makes no sense if there's no consistent cycle, right? Then there has to be some type of other external factor that influences sales. And then you walk me through some type of decision tree plus the data you would need to figure out if this, if not this, and then all the way through to this is my business recommendation. Okay. All right. Now let's go with one of these questions from Albert. All right. So if you were given a lot of ambiguous data that seemed to be incorrect or invalid, what are some steps you could take to ensure that you could come to a conclusion? And then there's a second part of the question, but let's start with that one.
If I was given a lot of ambiguous data that do not seem to connect, what steps would I take to ensure that I could come to a conclusion? I would do a lot of data, I would create a lot of data from that data. For example, if we had like the data on when things were which month and day everything was purchased, and then if you have like the geographical data, like which states they were purchased from, you could infer. There's a lot of inferences you could draw from that. Like, okay, which season did they purchase this stuff in? For example, in North America, December is winter. But if you're looking at like hypothetically, like if we're looking at like a market in Australia, December would be probably the hottest time of the year. I don't know. Now I don't know if that's true. I would assume though that given it's on the opposite side of the world, that it is. So that's data you could draw from just having the date, and then from like the area, you would need to understand like the different climates in the parts of the states. For example, where I live, San Jose is very different from like Dallas Fort Worth. And Dallas Fort Worth, I'm pretty sure, is also very different from like Chicago. Like if you could see if you could draw just like more data like from that just by creating like seasonal or like geographical and climate, it would help you understand like a lot of the supply chain part of it at least. And in terms of the season though, you could understand, okay, so if a pet does different things in spring, summer, fall, winter, what would you sell at that season to cater to this specific kind of pet? Of course, and for like all the technologies, I would ensure that I have sufficient like dashboarding, sufficient like just like mining, and hopefully I have like at least tens of millions of data points to draw from, so that we could come to a better conclusion than if you had like a very small set of data. Other than that, I think that's about it. You just have to like draw. You have to create data from what you have, and then find a trend within that.
Can you give me an example of a time where it seemed like data was not related or had any type of connection, but you were able to find one?
So for that, I actually looked at in Bell and Lark. So I was looking at the December sales data in 2020 versus the December sales data in 2019. And then also like compared to like the other seasons. Of course, like December compared to November, I don't know how many people would typically leave the gift purchases to like the last minute. I certainly don't. But I would expect, for example, in November, as soon as Black Friday starts, the holiday season starts, you would be getting a lot of sales up to the week before Christmas. And then I would expect a drop then. Versus like during like summer where there's not that many, but if you were like a if you were like a swimwear manufacturer, you would expect a lot more sales in like July or August versus like October when the weather's cooling down. So in Bell and Lark, our most popular product actually reached a very big high in November of 2020 because everyone was trying to buy sketchbooks to give the kids so that they had something to do over winter vacation. Whereas starting in the middle of December, when our stock was running low and all that, you saw a pretty significant drop, even though we still had stock. Probably because like the winter storms were affecting a lot of the deliveries, and in many cases they were just simply delayed. So that's a seasonal trend I noticed that differed between like November and December. And also like at the start of the lockdown in March and April of 2020, we had a huge spike in sales because kids were being pulled out of school. Parents had to stay home too for COVID reasons, and people were just having a lot more spare time on their hands. As opposed to in February when COVID wasn't as rampant. And in January before like everything started.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is the December sales data was abnormally high and no one could understand why. And then you realized it's because of COVID.
No, not December. The March and April data was we had a very high spike in sales because of the shelter-in-place laws going in effect across the states.
Okay. So in that case, right, the data seemed to be a little ambiguous, or there was no obvious connection. You figured out the spike was due to the fact of COVID. So then, how does that inform a business decision? What does that information tell Bell and Lark to do?
That information it told us to basically start pushing aggressively on our most popular products to see if we can offer like bulk discounts so that people would buy a lot more because people were starting to buy more.
And then how'd that work out in April and May?
In April and May, we saw under a 100% increase, but we did see like around 50% increase, 50% to like 75% increase in sales because we started marketing aggressively. Whereas like in June, when like a lot of places opened up again, we saw the sales drop again.
Okay, and you're saying normally Bell and Lark does not do advertising and marketing during those time periods?
Well, no, we don't push that as aggressively. Like we don't spend as much.
Okay.
Like you could see all this from like Google Analytics, like the site traffic, and then like how everyone is going to where.
Okay. So I think as you practice these stories, those details will just come out more naturally, because those are the details that are important, right? Which is understanding the what or the why, and how it ultimately impacts the business. But overall, I think the examples were great. You didn't stumble through anything, or you didn't blank out on anything. All of your business examples were strong. Just knowing when to use the ones from your, I would say, analyst work as opposed to pre-analyst work. And then there's been a lot of helpful comments as well, encouraging like what parts of your stories to focus on and which parts of your analysis were great. Okay, well, yeah, that's all that I had. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and please give David a round of applause for volunteering. It is not easy to be in the hot seat over here. So thank you so much, David. We really appreciate you coming on a second time. And if anyone wants to volunteer, we don't bite, as you can tell, and everyone's very nice here. So please contact me or Albert if you're interested in doing a practice interview.
All right, cool. Yep, I echo that. Thank you so much, David. Thank you also again, Cory. If you're interested in joining us for one of these mock interviews, feel free to reach out to me either on Facebook or LinkedIn or through this video if you're watching it at a later date as a comment. Happy to accommodate you. We know that interviews are tough right now, and this is only meant to make it easier. Without further ado, best of luck on your job search, and we'll hopefully see you for another episode of this coming next week. Thank you all. Bye.